Hey everybody, welcome back to Obscurities and Miniatures. It's time once more for our weekly painting progress. And yes, we are back on track. We are back from a nice and somewhat relaxing Thanksgiving break. Hopefully all of you that celebrated it enjoyed yours as well. Hopefully all of you that partook in all sorts of shopping for Black Friday got what you were looking for. I know I certainly, I got a fair share of stuff. Actually, I got a fair share of stuff. My wife, who'd been out of town visiting her family, brought back a gigantic stack of books, which we will get through eventually. But yeah, so I tried to get some stuff painted, and I mean, I got a few things, and I say that, and I feel like that's a bit facetious of me, because it's like, oh yeah, I got a couple things painted, and then I'll bust out like half a, 2.5 dozen figures or something ridiculous. But no, I'm not sure where the time went, and I was commenting on that with my wife and my kids, and they were like, well, you looked so busy. And I'm like, yeah, I probably was, and I don't know where that time went, but that's life, I guess. Anyways, so we're going to start with the least amount of work possible, I guess, which is funny because I say that, but I did try, and this should look very familiar to many of you. And yes, this is Mega Man, or Rockman, if you want to be all obtuse about it. And I feel like this was one of the very first video games that I actually remember purchasing or owning on my own. Back in the days of video stores and rentals, when that was a thing, I remember getting them all the time. But Mega Man 2, Mega Man 1, I hated. I hated it. I think it was Iceman stage with the stupid disappearing blocks that drove me nuts. But Mega Man 2, I loved. I absolutely loved that. And I had all those old Nintendo Power posters on my wall in our room where, they would have like the whole kind of fold out with all of the different, robot bosses, robot masters. That's what they were called, right? Oh man, I loved those posters. Anyways, so yeah, Erkman started doing Mega Man, but we have no robot masters as of yet. So hopefully that's going to get rectified. And you can see where I cut some corners trying to get that eyeball painted there with his Mega Blaster in the way, and I did not do the best job on his face, I will admit. When it's that close, you can see all the imperfections, but nice and far away on the tabletop, I think it's going to look okay. And if anybody has a problem, well, I'll just slap him, because I don't care. Okay, next up. I don't know what this guy is called. The Githyanki, I think? They're like from Baldur's Gate or something, weren't they? Anyway, this is an older Comet Lord sculpt. And it's nice to see Comet Lord, who took a bit of a hiatus, because I can totally understand the grind of having to produce this stuff on a nearly daily basis, putting videos out, putting, Twitch streams out, putting new models up, putting stuff on Patreon or Tribes or wherever it is you like to download your models. It does take its toll. So I know he is plugging away at putting a new project together, which absolutely I will point everybody to when it's ready. But he's done a lot of nice sculpts, and I love the fact that, most of his sculpts he'll have maybe 4 characters per month, but then he'll have that same character in about like 6 or 7 poses, at least the older sets. So I liked the fact that he's just kind of floating there, meditating with his sword. And his sword has this kind of a purplish hue to it, but it doesn't really come through on the video, unfortunately. And trying to get the correct colors and not mess everything up in the process of having him float there was not the easiest. And I totally messed up his eyes right before I started painting him, but I think it worked out okay in the end. Again, it's one of those things that when it's all up close and personal like that, you can really see where I blotched things up. But, nice and distant, hey, that looks totally acceptable. Just the way I like it. All right, because I can't help myself, yet another Impact Miniatures Goblin, and I do not like what happened with that eyeball there. That's probably going to have to get fixed up. These guys are great single cast, I'm trying to think of the term. Was it spun resin? It's not like Restic, it's not the Cyocast, it came before that. I want to say... wasn't the Troll Cast. I know that was the thing that Impact did for a while. But anyway, these are the old Heartbreaker ones that they got the license for, and they're just a lot of fun, simple sculpts. Yeah, I know his skin is way too green on camera. But again, these are just classic looking goblins. I'm not even a fan of most of the orcs and goblins, but these, to me, just, they bring nostalgia. And the fact that as a kid who was getting into this when it was becoming popular, you could actually afford it too. Because I was at the hobby shop the other day with my kid, and he's like, "Why are these sets $60 for 5 guys?" And I looked at him and said, "I have absolutely no idea, because back in my day, you could buy a box of them for like $5 or something, at least a blister pack." And I always thought that was a cool thing about them. It was something I could afford as a kid. Yeah, and as an adult, but kids should be able to afford this stuff too. That's what's fun. All right, before I go off on way too much of a tirade. This guy was a somewhat recent model from Artisan Guild, who I managed to break right before filming, and that really pissed me off. He's supposed to have another chain there. This is from their bronze-clad Great Goblins release, which were like these kind of Greco-Roman bugbears, which I thought was kind of different, even though his eyes are a little lopsided, but then again, he's like kind of leaping forward and dashing. He came out all right. I think the bronze tone of his pugilistic punching lions came out okay. I'm not happy with the skulls on his base at all, or the one on his belt there, but again, this is one of those cases where, this is me being picky, and I know if I turn the brightness way high up, you can see a little bit more. That is unnaturally bright, though, in this room, unfortunately. There we go. It's a fun sculpt. The boss of this set was really cool, and I've just been trying to get around to finishing him up. But that's the thing. It's like I've been plugging away, and nothing's getting done. All right, now this guy was really cool, and I'm going to have a video on these pretty soon, if you guys are more curious about them. Obviously, if you don't check, a look at the link first, though, because, as always, I do have those links down below, so people can check this stuff out and go hog wild, like I do sometimes. No, I'm usually pretty good. All right, this is from Radioactive Abominable Angry Abyssal Hog Miniatures, or RAW Miniatures for short, and I absolutely fell in love with just how thick and chunky these guys are. And I was telling my daughter, they absolutely reminded me, because they're the idea of these guys is they're all single piece, support free. They're ideally at 10 millimeter. I bumped it up to 15 just because I like 15 more, and it's a nice solid scale at that size. You can see all the paint all over my fingers still. But no, I told my daughter, and she kind of agreed with me even, that it totally reminded me of the Squinkies that she used to have when she was little. And I'll admit, I loved Squinkies, and I caught so much grief from my wife buying them over and over and over again. And my daughter was very young at the time, and she just didn't even care, sadly. But yeah, these guys give me the same kind of vibe, and I absolutely am here for it. So if that sounds of interest to you, and they do come in smaller sizes. He's got fantasy and sci-fi stuff, but this is one of the fantasy ones. This is supposed to be one of their Dark Knights, but I painted him a little bit more heroic looking, and I left him pretty glossy on purpose because I thought, he's wearing armor. It should be shiny. But yeah, they have them, they have like multi-base arrays for these guys. But again, I bumped him up. I like the size. 15 millimeter works really nicely. They fit on a penny that I can, deface for videos. That's always great. So they're fun. And then finally, something that I have been meaning to get finished. And I finally did. And that is the standard for the Order of the Ashen Dawn from Parabellum and their Conquest game. So, funny story is, I have no idea how well he matches with the rest of them. Actually, pretty good from the looks of things. I started him after I had finished the other two. And I made sure to grab these guys since I knew that I was finally done with them. And I was like, heck yeah. They're all wielding maces. They are all just way too over the top with all their bling and stuff. I absolutely adore this set. Some of my favorite models, just in terms of the thickness of the models. This guy is still at my favorite of the bunch. And probably, if I remember what year he came out and what year I painted him, if it was 2023, he's probably going to be a contender for one of my favorite miniatures of the year. I absolutely love this model. That skull face, the big old spiked hammer, the skulls everywhere, just the over-adornment. And I mean, not to detract from the standard either. Now, I wanted to go with a white, kind of pale face mask, and I don't think I did a good job. I'm going to go back and touch it up, probably. And I know I need to go back and fix up the standard itself. And I don't think that the kind of off-white that I used there even closely matches any of the whites that I used elsewhere. So that's an interesting thing. And one weird issue I've had with these guys, and I don't know if I ever mentioned it in the original video, or the fact, maybe when I painted them, is that sometimes their parts just seem to blend together. And it's one of those things where I always wonder if they were kind of enlarged and like the details just kind of disappeared, or if it's just kind of a case of, you know, like some of those older Mantic figures where the details just kind of all mushed together. I don't know. I had a real hard time figuring out what was what on his cape, and I rolled with it, and I don't think most people are going to really care. That's even assuming he gets on the table, because more than likely, if I have all three of them, I'm going to be playing some kind of a rank and file mass battle game, which I doubt will ever happen. And if I'm going to be using them individually, I can guarantee this guy is first in line with his buddy, about to rear up and smash things or smash through enemy lines. He's going to be a close second. Maybe I'll run all three. I don't know. I've been trying to talk people into playing Conquest, and I'm not getting very far. Sadly, I got all set up, so the two of us, myself and my brother, since we had time on Black Friday, and thank you to everybody who helped decide for us while we were playing, I got myself a nice warband all set up, and I know he did too, and got everything all printed out, and then he got stuck at Best Buy trying to get his watch fixed, and I got stuck having to write lesson plans for my principal. So neither of us got to that. Hopefully we can have a rain check and I can properly kick his butt next week or the week after that. That is the hope, so fingers crossed. And I'll be sure to take lots of pictures of that. I have no clue how to set up a camera for that and film it. I doubt you guys want to see us prattle on for over, like, I don't know how many hours. But if we can manage to figure it out, we'll try. So fingers crossed, like I said. As I also said, we've got links to everything down below. If you want to check any of this stuff out yourself, by all means, you totally should. Help support all of those nice independent companies and the creators that make this stuff, because otherwise they won't. So, with that said then, this has been High Lord Tamerlane with Obscurities and Miniatures, saying thanks for watching, and we will see you back here soon. Bye-bye.